Hello and welcome to a series of videos in Conquering My Collection in which I'll be looking back at and talking about the three films in the Criterion Collection Blu-ray box set, spine numbers 990, 991 and 992, the Coca trilogy from Abbas Kiarostami. So let's get into this thing and start talking about these three films. I have already covered them in an episode of the Blu-ray Roulette series, which is also part of Conquering My Collection, which is where things get confusing, but I drew randomly on the shuffle, and if you're unfamiliar with that series, I take the 1,000+ movies, including short films and documentaries I have on Blu-ray that I've never seen before, and I randomized them through Letterboxd, and the one I came up with last was Abbas Kiarostami, Truths and Dreams, which is a documentary on this box set, which follows him going back to the locations of these three films that he made called the Coca trilogy. And I thought, well, maybe I should just watch the Coca trilogy first. So one thing led to another, and I devoured every single thing contained inside this incredible box set. And so I have talked about all three films, all five films included in the box set, in fact, in that Blu-ray Roulette episode. But I thought that, these films don't get talked about enough. And there might be people out there who see these films and look on YouTube for a review, and what you can find is maybe scant, and certainly my reviews of them in the Blu-ray Roulette episode are not kind of visible because it's not really promoted like this is a review of these films. It's more about the chance and the random nature of what I get in those videos. So let's start with the first film. And we'll do this, I'll do one video per film, and then I'll do a fourth video talking about the extras, because I've watched all of them, and what I think about that and how they tie into the box set, and just give you a full review of this entire collection. I remember when it was announced a couple of years ago, I was so excited because I'd previously seen the third film, Through the Olive Trees, and loved it, absolutely loved that film. And I kind of bemoaned at the time that it was only available in like really kind of bad, ropey DVD quality, and maybe not even that. And I thought I'd love to see this film in crisp, high definition, and a couple of years later, my wish was granted, and this box set was announced, and funnily enough, Through the Olive Trees is the one film in the box set that has the most incredible transfer. It's from a 4K source, looks gorgeous, and it's a film that's like mostly overcast, but there's something about the quality of that print that is just, it looks great. And the other two films look really good too, and we'll get to that, but this is like a dream release for me. Even though I'd only seen the third film, that was enough for me to be so excited about this set. And it was one of those things where, and I'll talk about this, I've brought this up many times, but it's worth noting down one more time in video form for posterity and just for housekeeping's sake. I really wanted to get this box set, and it's been at HMV, my local HMV, for 2 years now. And it's the same copy, and I'll tell you why I know it's the same copy. So this is like a gorgeous package, and it's very flimsy cardboard, as Criterion kind of like to do, and it does make for gorgeous sets, but they're very easily damaged or crushed and crumpled, and this is a very nice mint condition one. And I lucked out on Amazon with this. I just kind of bit the bullet, paid full price for it, and did not regret it, and having watched everything, definitely don't regret it. But in HMV they had the spider tags, so there's like a strap around the middle and over the top, and they've tightened it so much that it bends the cardboard in and all rumpled on, and it's just like, this is a collector's set, and I think it retails for £60, which is pretty pricey, but I would say a reasonable price for what you get, in terms of the restorations, in terms of the quality of the films themselves. And, it's a bit pricey, but I think it's worth it. But that's me. I love the films. Now, who's going to be interested in the Coca trilogy? Is it going to be your average everyday moviegoer? Probably not. Three Iranian films, just simple dramas. Well, they're not. I mean, the first one's a simple drama. They get more complex as they go on. Well, they don't actually. They're all three very simple films, but the conceit of the second two films is quite complex. Anyway, we'll get to that. There's not going to be many people who just walk into HMV and spend £60 on a box set like this. I mean, even looking at it, the packaging is very minimalist. It doesn't give too much away, really. I mean, if you've seen the films, you kind of get the gist of what the packaging is trying to do, and they're very simple films, and it's a very simple, clean, minimalist design on the packaging. but they retailed it at £60, and then they put it up to £80. And, you know, if I'd gone in and they had a dummy case or some way of not, you know, ruining the packaging, I would have bought it right there and then, just to get the nice pristine copy and to have it in my collection. I asked someone, do you have another copy of this? They said, no, that's the only one we got. He checked in the back. It was the only one. And I thought, you dickheads. Like, well, not even dickheads, because dickheads implies that they're being mean or nasty. No, you idiots, you knobheads. You know? Or, you know, kind of a playful Welsh way of saying that, but you fucking twats.
Yeah, fucking twat.
You know, you're not going to sell that, you know, because the only people interested in it are collectors who care about the condition of packaging. These are collector's items, you know. So I just said to myself, like, well, you've lost a sale as far as I'm concerned, and you've lost any future sale because no one's going to buy that. And lo and behold, 2 fucking years later, I was in HMV a week ago, and I went and had a look. The same one's still there, £80, you know. And it's just like, you're never selling it because you ruined it. You've ruined the packaging. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So I lucked out on Amazon with like a nice pristine copy. But let's get into this and talk about the first film. And one more thing I did want to say was that, you know, why has it taken me a year to get around to watching them? Well, you just need to wait for the right moment. And this Blu-ray Roulette series has been a great motivator for me to kind of take me down different paths. And I feel more obligated to kind of, it gives me that extra push, that extra kick up the arse to go and watch these things. And getting that documentary, I thought, let's just watch the Coco trilogy. That would be fun. You know, sometimes I just enjoy the feeling of getting a film or a collection of films I know I'm going to enjoy or will probably enjoy, and I just enjoy having it, you know, and knowing that it's there and knowing that at some point I'm going to really feel like watching it. And that doesn't always, you know, my moods change all the time, and I never felt in the mood to watch these films until I did. And I watched them and I love them, and I haven't regretted the purchase whatsoever, and it's now one of my favorite collections, I think, in my Blu-ray collection. So let's talk about the first film. From 1987, Where is the Friend's House? Now, there's a number of titles for the film. That I guess there's different translations, because in the extras on the box set, I've heard it not pronounced, I've heard it said many different ways. There's Where is the Friend's House, which is the way it's presented on the Criterion disc. Where is the Friend's Home? Where is My Friend's House? And Where is My Friend's Home? And I don't know which is the purely, you know, correct title for the film, but, you know, Where is My Friend's House seems a bit more literal and fitting. Where is the Friend's House is a bit more of a poetic twang to it, which I quite like, but we'll go with that. So from 1987, directed by Iranian filmmaker Abbas Kiarostami. Very simple film set in the Iranian countryside in the small village of Koka, which is about 200 miles out from Tehran, which is one of the main cities in Iran, I believe. And it's just this very, very simple tale of a young schoolboy, maybe 9, 10, 11 years old, who goes home one day after school and realizes that his friend's homework book has been left in his bag, or he took it by mistake. And at the beginning of the film, we get set up the fact that his friend has repeatedly flouted the rules in his class and written his homework down on a piece of paper, not his homework book. And the teacher berates him for this at the beginning of the film and says that, you know, you need to learn discipline. And when you do your homework in your homework book, then we can compare previous pieces of homework and what you've been marked, and it's very useful. But you also need to learn discipline. So if you do this again, it's been 3 times now, you will be expelled. So, you know, the main character, he realizes, shit, my friend is going to be expelled tomorrow if I don't get him his homework book so he can put his homework down in the correct place. And he's trying to tell his mum this, and, you know, it's almost a painful scene when he's in this courtyard in his house and he's trying to tell his mum, like, you know, my friend needs his book. I need to go take my friend his book. And she ignores him for, like, I mean, I think he says that phrase, like, you know, not the literal, I'm not speaking verbatim here, but, you know, essentially something along the lines of, I need to go take my friend his homework book. And he just says this line over and over, 20, 30 times. And it's about 10 repetitions before his mother even looks at him, you know. And the film is told from the child's perspective. And all these adults who aren't really taking him seriously or aren't really even considering him at all. And so it's very much from the child's perspective in this film, which is really interesting. And I enjoyed that element of it. And the young boy who plays the main character, and these are all non-professional, they aren't actors, they're just kind of people who have been, you know, cast in the film by Kiarostami, and he had his own ways of directing them and getting the performances out of them that he wanted. But you get there's an authenticity to that because they're real people. They're not trained to perform in a way. And so if you can kind of wrangle them into some kind of a performance, then you do tend sometimes, if you've got a really good director behind you, you tend to get results that come off as very authentic and natural. And this is a very kind of, the realism is kind of definitely something that is painted throughout this film. And the other two, I would say, along with other things, but you definitely get a real raw sense of real people, real location, and most of the film is literally him going across the countryside to find his friend's house because he doesn't know where his friend lives. I love this detail towards the beginning where he has decided, you can tell he's decided, because it's what you would do if you're in that situation. His mother's telling him he can't go, he can't possibly do this and go over to the other town, or the other village, because it's too far to walk and he has other things to do, he has to go and get bread and stuff. But she says, you have to go and get bread now. And you can almost feel the gears spinning in his head to where, okay, I've got an excuse to leave now, then I'm going to go take the book back to my friend. And he feels this kind of moral obligation to his friend, which is really sweet and touching in a way, even though it's never really, it's not verbally expressed in the point where he's like, oh, my friend will be expelled. He never says that, and it's never like he's upset about it. He is just determined. It's almost like a stone-faced, Buster Keaton style determination. He has to kind of achieve this goal, and he'll do whatever it takes. Like he's just running up this hill and going down to the next village, coming back and going back and forth, and that's all the film is. It's just him trying to find where his friend lives so he can give him this book back, and pestering all the adults that he comes across along the way. But just before he leaves, he grabs the homework book and he stuffs it under his jumper, and he goes to leave the courtyard of his house. And I thought while I was watching this, man, if I was making this film, I probably would have put in the detail where he would check the book, because I was thinking it might be his own book, and I thought, oh, is that where the film's going? It's going to be this long journey and he'll finally get there and it's the wrong book. And then literally a second later he stopped, looked at the book, and then ran back and grabbed the other one. And I thought, oh my god, like that was just it was a fun moment of synchronicity where my brain was thinking one thing and it kind of happened. And it's just a small detail. It doesn't need to be there, but it's just an added kind of, quirk that again makes it feel more real, I think. And it's what you would do, what a kid would do, what anyone with a logical brain would do. So off he goes, and there's this beautiful kind of zigzag formation up a big hill with a lone tree at the top, and it becomes this kind of signature image of all three films in a way. Well, not all three, I'd say of the first and third film, and it briefly appears in cameo in the second film. But this is actually a zigzag path that was formed, or was created by Kiarostami himself. He kind of ordered that kind of the creation of the landscape, and it's really interesting when you see the other two films, because that zigzag hill is in different spots in every single film. Because in the first one, it's this kind of conceived drama. In the second film, it's about the real location where this film was made, and so you see that it's just you're driving down this road and you see it as you're passing. So there's a road there, not a village. But then in the third film, there's a whole different section where it's like these olive trees and stuff. So what Kiarostami does, as it was the trilogy progressive, and I should say that Kiarostami never considered it a trilogy himself, and I initially was made to believe that he was quite cold on people calling it a trilogy, but he did in fact warm to it. He just didn't really consider it as something that was conceived that way or should be labeled as much. And he thought of the way that he expressed certain themes in his films in other ways. I think it was perhaps the second and third film of this trilogy and Taste of Cherry that he considered like three films about similar themes. But either way, he kind of, begrudgingly accepted it, I suppose. But it's fun how throughout those three films he's constantly playing with what the truth is and what's real and what's not. But in this first film, it's that stuff isn't really there. But when you have the context of the whole trilogy, it's really interesting to then... I want to go back and see the first film again now that I've seen 2 and 3. Although I'd already seen the third film, but it had been so many years. So there's kind of a recontextualization of each film once you've seen all of them, I think, which is really interesting and fun. So he goes off, and there's only one scene in the film in which he doesn't really appear. He goes over to the town, he's trying to find his friend, and he can't. So he comes back, because in fact there's a lead that he maybe can go back and find him in the town that he's from, Coca. And I don't know whether it's right to call it a town or a village per se. Town's probably too big of a kind of description. But either way, he goes back to where he's from, and he meets his grandfather, and his grandfather sends him off to get some cigarettes, and he later tells his friend that I don't need cigarettes, I just need to teach the boy discipline. And then the main character leaves, and we just stay on the grandfather, and he has this conversation with his friend for about 5 or 6 minutes, and this is kind of digression in the middle of the film. The boy comes back, and then we follow him for the rest. It's kind of just this nice little, side story that was I really enjoyed that. It was almost like a nice little intermission from the main film in a way. It's nice just seeing like the landscapes, and it's something that I really enjoy, and probably something I enjoyed the most in the second film in terms of seeing a lot of the Iranian countryside, because the second film is like a road movie, and you see a lot of the locations where they filmed the first film, and different parts of that area as well. But I've always said that one of the big things for me with world cinema especially, even American films, is just seeing places I've never been before, but especially in world cinema, seeing these just a little village, like it's this nondescript little location, almost in the middle of nowhere, and these 3 films were made there, and so you get to have this interesting viewpoint on it, especially given the fact that there was a big earthquake that happened in between the first and second film, which informs the second and third film, the true life events of an earthquake that happened in the area and killed some 50,000 people, which is just devastating. But you get to see the before and the after, and you get to see little bits in between, and I just enjoyed seeing the journey that he took us on. And then when you see the second and third film, you see how he's constructed some of it, because it's not quite as it seems, which makes the first film even more impressive by the little details. There was a funny moment in the Q&A on the Blu-ray where I think someone had asked him about, was there a script for the first film? And he said that, it's, I don't know if he said this exactly, but he said something along the lines of, it's, well, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but, the implication there was that, I don't know if that's flattering or frustrating, because, there was definitely a script, but the fact that maybe people think that it's like this real thing that I captured is maybe a compliment, right? Because it feels so authentic. But there was definitely a script, there's definitely something that, and it is all too easy to watch these 3 films, I think. Well, maybe the first film and the second film, the third film not. The third film feels the most constructed, for sure. But the first film is just very simple, slice of life almost. And the second film very much feels like a very natural flowing piece. Because the third film really breaks the fourth wall a lot. Well, it doesn't even break the fourth wall, but you can tell the construction of a lot of things. Whereas the second film flows very much like something that could have really happened. It almost feels like a documentary at times, even though there's certain parts of the framing and the way that it's performed and shot and edited that feels like a normal film. And in the first film, more so than the other 2. But what I'm trying to get at is they almost feel like he's captured these little moments from reality, which I think is a compliment to some people. And I can see how it might be frustrating that he thought that, people said that, maybe there was no script and that you just kind of caught all of this. And it's like, no, I put the work into this, But that's one of the interesting things about really making an audience believe in something. If you go too far in that, they might even think you've hardly done anything at all to create that world. But that is doing a good job and really succeeding in what he was trying to create, which was something that feels very real, I think. Don't know whether that was something that was in his mind, like this needs to be a film that feels totally real, but it's something that he pulled off because of the naturalistic performances, the simple story, but there's still filmic things in it because it's all building towards, will he find his friend? And there's clever ways that he plays around with teasing us of whether or not he's going to find his friend, and it's something he finds in the back garden of someone's house, and a boy that may be his friend, but he's holding a board in front of his face for the introduction in that scene. So there's fun little things that happen along the way, and then we follow along to the finale, which is, I would say, it's tricky, but it might be my favorite ending of the 3. Even though I love the ending of Through the Olive Trees, the third film, there's something really satisfying about the ending of this one. I don't know if I should really spoil it, but I loved how it became almost a completely different film in the third act when night falls, and of all the adults who'd kind of really given him no help whatsoever and kind of shunned him away, and not really from his parents, to the people, his grandfather, who's kind of, browbeating him about discipline and stuff. you get this old man at the end who actually takes him seriously and tries to help him and tries to walk him around to find what he's trying to find. And then he's going off on all these digressions because he's an old man who kind of, never gets to really talk to people that much, you can tell, because he talks the young kid's ear off and talks about all these doors that he's made. And there's just so much you can get out of this film, I think, and it's a kind of film I really enjoy when it's done well, and this film is really done well. I love the ending. I love the opening credits, which play out over just a door, and you hear the classroom, just kind of bustling and stuff, and then the scene begins, the teacher comes in, and we get right into a really powerful moment at the beginning. Now, I'll say this is the one thing that I actually hold against the film. It's when he kind of gives the kid a bollocking, the friend of the main character, because he has done his homework on a piece of paper, like I said. And he's like, how many times is that now? 3 times that you've done this, and if you do it again, you're going to get expelled. And then there's this one shot of the kid, like hands like this on the table, and his head comes up, and he is just devastated. He is proper crying. He's not bawling, but he's proper upset. You can see this kid, it's proper getting to him, like there's real tears. And I suddenly felt really uncomfortable. I wasn't in the moment of the film because I felt like, I think they did something really bad to make the kid do that for the film. And the only thing I could think of, and maybe I was just kind of jumping to the worst, possible conclusion, but I thought maybe they just brought this kid in and said, okay, we're going to film this scene. Remember your lines? Okay, let's go. Oh, before we film, just to let you know, there was an accident up the road and your parents both died. But we'll deal with that later. Let's roll camera, get sound going, because he just seemed so devastated. Now that I look back, I think that's a ridiculous thing, and that wouldn't have worked. It would have been a horrible thing to do. But I just felt like, what did they say to him to make him look so genuinely upset? That wasn't acting, and it wasn't. And it's actually covered multiple times throughout the extras in the box set. The story that happened is that Kiarostami, there was an assistant, I believe, on the film, or a photographer, who was taking Polaroids of all the young boys in the film. And Kiarostami said to the photographer, don't take the picture of this one boy. Don't let him take his picture. And he kept begging, can you please take my picture? So finally they took the picture, and he was so happy that he got his Polaroid taken. And these kids, it's kind of, it's a completely different world to what people like me grew up with. Something like a Polaroid is something that's a real kind of like exciting thing. So he had his Polaroid taken, he had it, and then I think Kiarostami then had that Polaroid put inside the workbook or something to that effect. So it would be on the desk when they filmed. And then when they were ready to film the shot, Kiarostami pulled out the Polaroid. I think it was Kiarostami, that the story seemed to change, but someone pulled out the Polaroid and said, didn't we tell you about this, that you weren't supposed to have your Polaroid taken? How many times did we tell you? And he repeats through tears 3 times, and they rip it in half. Or maybe they ripped it in half first and then asked the question, how many times did we tell you about this? So he was genuinely gutted and upset, and that I feel so bad for the poor kid. And, he told a story about Billy Wilder kind of, saying horrible things to some actress he was working with to get the right, response in the film. And, there is a certain thing to be said for going the extra mile. Pain is temporary, film is forever. I'm sure the kid, who kind of played that part, doesn't hold any ill will towards it, but it threw me out of the moment because it was so convincing, and because it was someone upset and it was a kid. I knew that had to be something real that happened, and that kind of made me a little bit uncomfortable with it. But having heard the story of how it happened, and seeing him appear in the third film, it does make me kind of soften a little bit on it. So I'm intrigued to see it again, to see if I will balk at it again. Because that's the only part of the film that I thought, almost bites a bit too, deep, I think. I don't know. So I'm intrigued to see it again, to see how that moment holds up. But I was so wrapped up in the story of the boy trying to get it just wants to get this thing back to his friend. And there was something, again, really touching about his dogged persistence. Just shots of him running up hills and through the village and stuff, and trying to find this and that. And he gets to the village finally, and he's going to find him. And then one of the women says, well, yeah, you're in this place, but there's different areas in this place. I mean, do you want to go to this one, this one, this one? So the goal just becomes further and further in the distance as the film goes on, and you begin to wonder if he ever does find him. The ending to me was satisfying, but in a completely different way than I was expecting. And I thought it was a wonderful ending to a wonderful film. So I'll leave it there. Oh no, I won't actually. As part of this video, I'll briefly mention the extra film on this first disc, which is Homework from 1989. I'm undenied about watching it, but I'm so glad that I did. It's 85% of it is just talking heads of young boys in an Iranian school, and Kiarostami was intrigued about the concept of homework, and kind of, I guess he kind of had some struggles with his own son, and how the role parents have to play in making sure their kids do their homework and stuff, and how homework translates into school lives for children, and how it affects them. And it becomes this really interesting, fun kind of 7-Up like experience where you're just seeing these funny, interesting young kids saying these funny things, and talking about homework and how they don't like doing it. And then it just starts to get real dark real quick when the kids are saying, like, I mean, I would say that out of all the kids who are interviewed in this film, 8 out of 10 at least get beaten regularly by either the teachers or their parents, through homework or other means, or they get beaten up by their siblings, and that's just life for them. And it's just, some of them are kind of chipper about it, some of them are a bit quieter, and then there's this one kid towards the end who's just in hysterics, and he's holding up and he's like, no, please, 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 and he wants to leave, or he wants his friend to come in to kind of be with him for like support. And Kiarostami's behind the camera, and you frequently see shots of Kiarostami, which have clearly been filmed after the fact, 'cause he's asking the questions again, but it's a nice way to kind of break up the monotony of seeing all these talking heads. One criticism I will say is there's a cutaway of the cameraman, kind of, you just see like his eye there, and he's like slowly turning the lens, and they use that cutaway so many times. I get it, they're trying to hide the cuts maybe of cutting out all the boring bits of the kids talking heads, but that he used that cutaway so much it got really tedious, I think, and overused. But the cutaways to Kiarostami sitting there asking the questions with the camera crew behind him were placed very well and timed quite nicely. But Kiarostami saying to this young boy, why do you feel scared? We're not going to do anything to you. But he's just so upset, and he's just crying, and he wants his friend to come in, and they just send him away. And then there's a sequence where they show all the boys outside of the school singing some sort of it's kind of like I don't know how you even describe it. It's kind of like this song, and it's very patriotic and stuff, and there's a very politically charged message in there in terms of I think Saddam Hussein is mentioned. I don't know anything about the history or the political history around that, but that was intriguing. There wasn't any context provided for that, which is fine, but there's a bit where Kiarostami is on the narration saying, a lot of the boys didn't take it very seriously, so we're just going to drop the sound out from this sequence. And you just watch them in silence for like 2 minutes, and you see them kind of playing around with each other and doing all this stuff, and it was just really interesting. I don't know. It was shot on 16mm film. It looks really good on Blu-ray. Obviously rougher than the main films and the box set. But then towards the end, that hysterical kid comes back. And he's like, no, please, 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 again. And they bring his friend in, and his friend's there standing behind him. No, before that happens, I have to say, they spoke to his friend separately, and they said, what's wrong with your friend? And he's like, oh, he's always like that. He's naughty in class, and he got punished, and now he's always scared. And you kind of think, like, is he always really that hysterical, though? Probably not. They bring him in then, so it's the two of them. And initially, you can tell he's putting on a bit of a brave face. And I honestly saw a little bit in his mannerisms that made me think like he's going to be a bully when he's older, or like he's been affected by something bad, and I think it's gonna not that it's not gonna end well, but I had a feeling there was something in his mannerisms where his expression changed, and he put on a bit of a front so he wasn't upset anymore, and I could tell that it just felt like it's going to affect him negatively, whatever's going on in his life, and that's how it starts. That's how bullies are made. That's how bad people, are created, unfortunately. But then he starts crying again. He's upset again, and his friend is trying to it's this fascinating little sequence, and that's where the film ends. But Homework is kind of a really fun counterpoint to Whereas The Friend's House, because it's about homework in a sense, you can kind of pair it together quite nicely in that sense, but they're two very different films at the same time. But there is this kind of sense of the pressures that are placed upon these boys in Iran at that point in time to do homework. And there's actually an interview in the film with a parent or a teacher, I think it's a parent, and he talks about, you know, his kind of ideology in terms of homework. So it sounds like a really boring fucking film, just homework, the documentary, but I actually thought it was fascinating and really, really loved it. Anyway, so that's included on the first disc as well, so I thought I'd mention that. That is my thoughts on Where's the Friend's House. I'll see you in the next video where I cover the second film in the trilogy, And Life Goes On. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you then.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause